Welcome, trainers, to the PokeSphere. We're your destination for in-depth Pokemon news, community discussions, and editorial content. We're passionate about this franchise, and we're here to share our insights and connect with fellow fans. So let's talk Pokemon. So we are hot on the heels of the Pokémon Day Presents, and there will be a follow-up video where we actually give our reactions. But I wanted to take the minute to address a couple of things. So this video is going to be a little bit different than our typical stuff where we, review, we give our insights, our thoughts about what we saw, how we feel, because once the presents was over and we got our first look of Generation 10, there were a lot of questions that started popping up. I went from being fairly hyped to see what Game Freak was going to bring to the table to being shown how there might be some foul play involved, I guess you would say, with the starter. Now, on our live stream, which is up, you can, at one point I do turn around and mention how the grass starter kind of reminds me a lot of an Angry Bird, except in green. And then we saw Pom Bomb, and then, of course, Gequa. And for me, Gequa triggered this looks vaguely familiar to me, and I couldn't quite place it where. And shortly after, I actually received a message from a friend of mine who is a huge creature collector, and he sent me the picture of Pom Bomb from Cassette Beasts, which is a fire-type beast, and I believe he said it was one of their starters for the game. And so this kind of started throwing a lot of issues in my head for what's going on here with these starters and what's going on with Pokemon in the legal realm, as well as what we have been shown, knowing what the development cycles generally tend to be. So I've got my co-host here, as well as we're joined by Unseelie King, who we actually did the live stream with, so he can attest to my hype and then my absolute tail spinning of rage at the potential that Pokemon may have plagiarized one of their starters at the minimum. And so I'm opening up the floor to you guys. I'm gonna be frank. I'm gonna post the picture into our chat now, so that you guys can see side by side where I'm coming from when it comes to where the inspiration may have come from, or where, what some would call inspiration and what others may call plagiarism may have come from. And I kind of want your honest opinions on just the visuals alone on a side-by-side comparison.
I think, honestly, I played Angry Birds. I've only watched I've only watched because that's the one that I hear most about, right? Green Bird dude be looking like the Angry Birds dude, right? So I played Angry Birds every now and then, right? So even then, I wouldn't really put two and two together myself personally. But I do see why you could, because he does have that look on him. His eyebrows are exactly like how it would. And he is pretty small. I do feel like I want to chuck him. He gives me that feeling. He's chuckable, right? The lizard is cool. I don't think I've ever seen the character that, or any kind of any kind of character that looks like it. Even if you put it to, as a side-by-side comparison with this blue lizard from, I think you guys said it was from Frozen, I still would say it looks different enough. Nah, this dog, with what was found out on Friday, at least within this group of people, at least, this is something. This is something. I never would have put two and two together still, because I have not played Cassette Beasts either. But I feel like first impressions, definitely also didn't think of it being similarly related to anything. Still in terms of all the these character or these new starters looking like something, I still wouldn't be able to put two and two together. if I didn't see like all this context or whatever being posted like around, especially on like Twitter X, like I think these would have been, you know, unique designs. Like there was no problems, great designs, all three starters, little, you know, little chickpea or whatever it's called, just a little more on the bottom of my list. But yeah, that's that's my thoughts.
Personally, I've been struggling a lot with my love for Pokemon. It's sort of been dwindling significantly, and the presents as a whole I found pretty lackluster. I don't think it was worthy of the fan base that has stood behind it for as long as they have. As far as the starters go, the only one I can really see there being an issue with is Pom Bon, just because of how similar it is to the Cassette Beast. The other two, Gequa, some similarities have been drawn to the lizard from Frozen, but that lizard is based on a fire salamander, whereas Gequa is a gecko, water gecko specifically. Brout, I can see the similarities to an angry bird, but I suppose that's really where it ends, because even its name, it just seems like a combination of brow and sprout, because like its brow and its beak does look like a sprout. And obviously they've made him look angry on purpose, or just the pronounced brow probably just makes him look angry. So I don't really see an issue with the water and grass starters. Pom Bon, definitely there's an issue there. I feel like they knew what they were doing. But then again, if they wanted to make a Pomeranian fire starter, there's only so many designs that they can come up with. So you'd just be looking strictly at the name as a whole. And I suppose that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Otherwise, I'm just going to carry on rambling.
So I'm not really sure if the question here is whether this is close to emulating other media or if it's not. I think reach a certain point where if you're selling a product and you're trying to cater to a specific demographic, that going to end up having similarities because of the information that you're basing these designs and the ways that you're trying to go about, let's be honest, manipulating that market. That being said, there's also the other side of the coin where reality creates art creates reality, and this is an infinite chain that kind of just evolves over time. And I guess, you know, we're seeing that more and more, especially as we're entering this crazy crossover mania. So we're getting into this huge era where they're trying to cross over everything. That you see Magic the Gathering with all these external universes. You have Spider-Man with SpongeBob, D character, Doctor Who. Ninja Turtles are coming soon. Fortnite, you have them literally pumping every digital existence that has ever been popular at any global level into their game as skins and characters and abilities and music, etc., etc., etc. And the question really comes down to, if Pokemon is trying to nail a similar market, then wouldn't they have to do a similar thing? Or is this like, so you're seeing basically other art influence the reality of art, and it's been this whole thing since the beginning of time about life imitates art, and then art imitates that life, and then so on and so forth for all infinitum. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing. My takeaway, my conclusion for that whole argument is, if they're going to be accepting that they're getting this close to other established media, then why don't they reach out to some of the fans? Why don't they reach out to the Fakemon artists and let them work with some of these smaller licenses? If you're going to risk lawsuits from big companies, then you could easily hand one of these Fakemon artists $5 for their rights for something, and they'd be high to let you use this as an official Pokemon design if you have to rework it a little bit.
So my thoughts are going to mimic yours a lot. I do agree with Chase and Gurren in the way of the bird, the gecko. There are enough differences there where that could legitimately be coincidence, and we're seeing things that we're already used to. The dog is, I mean, I showed my fiance, no context. I showed her Pom Bon, and then I showed her Pom Bomb. And she literally looked at me and goes, so they're the same Pokemon. And I was like, she legitimately, her exact words to me were, I thought Pom Bomb was you redrawing Pom Bon and just hadn't finished the main. That should not be the case at all. And I'm sorry, the Pokemon Company has enough wherewithal to keep track of every creature catcher game that literally comes in, because they want to make sure that their IP is safe and not being used. You're not telling me that they didn't know that this creature existed. You can't tell me that they didn't realize that this creature existed in that space. Same typing, literally the same name. Something happened there, or something didn't happen there, where they need to answer that question. Besides that, I mean, like, it's hard to justify. It's very hard to justify, at least in my eyes. I like I said before, I will say for the bird and the Gequa, I think we are imposing past media that is similar and being like, oh, it looks like that, which is fine, because if the inspiration is there, it's a subtle nod to other franchises, but it's not outright plagiarism. I mean, that's at least where I stand on it.
About that. So what I think about it is it can be both, a bit of both, I guess. From the way I'll bust the picture in there and try there's the Gen starter Pokemon, and then the one that I guess the fan came over. Yeah, asking me if it's inspirational or is it plagiarism? Is it? It's a bit of both, but I think it's probably maybe inspiration, because when she's talking about nowadays, so. That's why, I'm sure that look at, the people who like Pokemons, and I mean, fake mods, and then they'll look at it, and they'll decide like, what they're gonna come up with. So yeah, and I'll see, you're not wrong. It could be like say both, because the how these fake mods look like, they look similar to the new generation of Pokemon though.
Based on what you guys have said, I'm willing to give a little latitude when it comes to Gequa, which is ironic because that's the one I was gonna go with if I decided to pick this game up. Because honestly, it was like the one that seemed to have the most personality of all three of them. And when you do look up Gequa cartoons on Google, they all have very similar looks. The reason I posted the particular one from Frozen 2 was because when I showed my wife the trailer, and I did not give her any information prior, I let her watch the trailer without me saying a word about the potential of plagiarism. She looked at that Gequa and she went, I know that character from somewhere. As a matter of fact, I know exactly where that character is from, and she pulled up Frozen 2, which is why I threw that picture there. Because she's a big Disney person, so she watches anything Disney. And the minute that she saw the Gequa, she's like, wait, are they doing a collaboration with Disney? Like, her thought process was literally trying to figure out why those two characters look the same. And again, I made that recognition of Brout with the Angry Birds the minute they revealed it. I'm like, why does he look like an Angry Bird? And I'm willing to go as far as, maybe that is some kind of inspiration, maybe that's kind of some form of homage. But then when I got the message of Pom Bomb, and you look at it, I mean, they have the same open mouth, they have the same eyes, the color for the face is the exact same, they're both the same typing, and Pom Bomb was released in the game back in 2023 when this game would have been in production. And so the fact that there's so many similarities, it falls too far beyond coincidence for me. And there's a question that has to be answered. Is it truly a coincidence, or is this incompetence? Because I'm pretty sure, like Unseelie, you said, Nintendo's very protective of this property. They normally scour for any similarities, and then they'll make changes or scrap a project. As a matter of fact, that's the reason we never got a Mega Flygon, because they couldn't come up with something that didn't encroach on someone else's design. Yet here we have a Firestarter Pokemon that encroaches on someone else's design. And even if one of their artists decided to plagiarize from a game that maybe they thought nobody was playing, yeah, I mean, this was released back in April 26. It has under 6,000 positive reviews on Steam, all right? So this isn't a very known game. And maybe the artist, you know, again, speculating, not accusing, but perhaps the artist thought they could get away with, you know, doing a copy paste and a slight tweak, because you can see the similarities to Zamazenta's shield face. But whoever was supposed to go through this and check and make sure that all the designs were legit failed massively. That being the case. And I mean, I have openly tweeted to Nintendo, to Pokemon. I have tagged By Right Studios asking what the hell, because again, I am invested in Nintendo monetarily. I am invested as a consumer, as a shareholder. And the shareholder part of me is demanding an answer, because if this is plagiarism, there needs to be reparations to the company and repercussions for those responsible. And if this is flat out incompetence, somebody needs to lose their job, because this isn't, to me, this is not cool. I'm not okay with any of this. And it's one of the reasons why I've been struggling all weekend to just kind of get an understanding of what's going on with this. I don't know. I went off on a rant. I'm sorry.
So how mad would everyone be if the Browlet or whatever, Browlet, that's not a ripoff of its own designs. If Brout ends up evolving into something that's now throwing little beats everywhere as like destructive seed bombs. We've already seen kind of like the seed bomb thing with Meowscarada. I mean, this could be inspirational, but if it evolves into something that pushes that inspiration even further, that makes a direct reference to Angry Birds, as you know, in this case, would that be a positive or a negative? Would you see this as them wanting this, or would this just be an homage? Same with if, you know, Bon evolves into an explosive little puppy instead of a kiln or an oven or or so. Like, where do you draw the line between being an homage to other, like, creature collectors, other media, corporation, representation? Like, as long... It's an interesting world. Like I said, my brain keeps going back into this, how they're trying to fold everything into everything. What do you think, guys?
So the thing is, right, if Brout, for example, I'll cover that one. If Brout does evolve and, you know, throw seed bombs or whatever, shares some kind of mechanic that's similar to an Angry Bird, I feel like that's circumstantial at best, because there is only really so much you can do. So a lot of these creatures or creature collecting games do share similar moves and abilities, because again, there is only a finite amount of things you can come up with to fit these characters. So yeah, I feel like that'll be circumstantial at best. Pom Bomb, I'd have to wait and see what actually comes of it. I feel like design-wise, it's already left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. Even people who aren't familiar with Cassette Beasts and have found out through these pictures and stuff, I think there's still room for them to be angry, given Pokemon's track record, especially with Power World and the fact that they share similarities, and Power World was accused of copying them, taken to court, and all of that nonsense. So we'll just have to see what comes of it, and how similar things turn out to be.
I think for X, the question you asked about route, like I agree with Chase, there's only really so much they can do. But because of so think of like who like the artists and the designers are for, Pokemon now. They grew up playing games like Angry Birds. So they're going to draw inspiration from that. And that part I'm kind of fine with, because it's, as at least given my age and, my experiences with like, different mobile games and all that, it's kind of cool to look and go, I know where you got the inspiration for that. And as long as you keep it as just inspiration, awesome. Like it hits a little bit of nostalgia in something new. With Pom Bomb though, and my point to like folding everything together, they pays a ton of money to get these licenses, to be able to work with, other developers. If that didn't happen here, there's a much bigger conversation to be had with, is it because of how like giant of a company you are that you feel you can do this? Or is it a, like Draco said, just absolute, well, the QC guy just forgot to QC this, but it's one of the faces of your generation. Wouldn't you want to take extra steps to make sure that you're not impinging on somebody's, intellectual property, to make sure that it's a design that's not going to be questioned or not going to be looked at in a negative viewpoint? Like, that's the part that I don't understand. Like, how do you take your starter and even allow it to have this type of controversy?
Look, I'm gonna be honest. If Game Freak comes down and says, no, here are the receipts, we reached out, we got an okay, all right, I'm done, I'm good, I'm back on board. But the fact that By Right Studios tweeted the Fast and the Furious meme of the guy just kind of staring and then doing the whole "I'm looking at you" with no context whatsoever, and when you read the comment section, it's all about Pom Bomb, something didn't happen. Again, I'm trying to make sure that I'm presenting this as even keel as possible. I'm trying to keep an open mind about the situation as it seems, because again, we're literally 3 days past the Pokemon Presents, so there might be things that we don't know, and I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. However, it is damning to see how close they are in concept, and even the studio behind kind of giving that second side eye of and that's where my issue starts, because if they're questioning the design, then something didn't happen. Something legitimately didn't happen. And it's, again, we all know that with Pocket Pair taking the designs from Pokemon, there's no denying it. They took models. They used models in their game. They, and if Nintendo had a case about that, they would have gunned it for it. But I think in Pocket Pair's case, a lot of their stuff falls under parity laws, because they did do some changing of the Pokemon into their pals, but there's no denying that those pals are identical to certain Pokemon and certain Digimon, because those are exactly what we refer to them as. We refer to them as their Pokemon and Digimon counterparts, not whatever they're called in game. But this looks more closer to a one-to-one, and therein lies the problem. And that's why, me personally, I'm like, we need an answer. We absolutely need an answer from Nintendo. We need an answer from all these other companies saying whether or not they were okay with this or they're not. If the other companies are totally fine with this, I'm good. I got no complaints, because if they're not going to complain, I can't complain. But that's my take.
So I kind of want to go really nerdy here, mostly because I've recently watched a video covering it. And I know that both Draco and Chase will be able to follow this and probably even be able to add to this from what I'll be able to do. But referring to the origins of Linus operating system, it was created from the ground up to get around licensing and using an already created operating system that couldn't be free used because of the licensing and stuff like that. I feel like I'm very much simplifying this, but are you two, my kind of residential IT PokeSphere here, are you familiar where I'm kind of taking this idea?
To a degree, yeah. It's obviously a lot more complicated than that, but I mean, I think the simplified version that you gave sort of does nail most of the points.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that was clear. So if we have a very Ship of Theseus sort of vibe going on with that situation with like Cassette Beasts and Pom Bomb, they definitely should have figured out a different name. This is way too close to that exact thing, even if the imagery is this close as well. It's if you build it from the ground up in the same image of something that exists, where are the lines in the sand drawn that it rather than which one is the Ship of Theseus, the one that has always been Ship of Theseus and maintained, or the one that you built with the discarded rotted pieces of wood, the exact same blueprints of the original?
I mean, it's an interesting thought to keep in mind. And again, it just kind of falls back into that whole thing of, if it is in fact a situation of which one is the real Ship of Theseus, if everybody involved is on board with either being, with all things being all right, then there's no argument. There's no cause for concern. But the minute someone has an issue with it, where it does look like they were part of the original crew, then it starts to have, then you have to start questioning things. That's when you have to kind of start tracing back of where did things go wrong. So, I mean, I'm just presenting this information, and again, I'm trying to stay as even keel as possible until we start seeing answers. It is very difficult to maintain my love of this franchise when things like this pop up.
I think, for the most part, just as a whole, if you want to be upset about it, be upset about it. I'm not going to say don't be upset. But let's hold some serious outrage at bay for a bit, just to see how things develop. Of course, it is a tricky situation, because even if Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are in the wrong, who really has the money to fight them? You know, if they did kind of ask for permission to look similar, kind of like a copy my homework but change it a little bit kind of thing, and they overstepped that, that's also an issue. Whether Wind and Wave started development before Cassette Beasts did, that's also something to take into consideration. So there's a lot of factors that we don't know about just yet. So hopefully it's not too malicious, but I mean, again, only time is gonna tell.
Hold off on any outright outrage until we have more facts, for sure. Because, I mean, again, we could all be jumping the gun for those of us who think it was malicious, and it wasn't, and then we'll end up looking like fools.
Pom Bon, the whole situation is, I don't know. It is what it is. We're just going. I wanna sit back, grab some popcorn, and see what kind of stuff unfolds within this week or within the whole year coming up, and see where everything goes. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any actual big like controversies going on right now, so I'm hoping it stays that way, because honestly, like, you know, a lot of people really love the doggo, you know, right? Like you know, I think it's like number one right now for like most fans. So, and you know, yeah, I think yeah, I agree. Let's just see, ride this wave, no pun intended.
That's gonna say,
see where the wind takes us, no pun intended.
And see if Pom Bomb blows up in their faces. No pun intended.
And with that brings this episode to a close. What are your thoughts about the starters? What are your thoughts about the fact that they may have been either inspired or and plagiarized from existing properties? Let us know down below. Also, be sure to share, like, subscribe. Let us know how we're doing. You can watch the videos on Rumble and YouTube, and you can always reach out to us on X and on Blue Sky, as well as join our Discord and catch us there. And as always, we'll see you in the next video.
video.